LeBron ran from the grind. This is one of the biggest lies told about LeBron, that he couldn't win without a super team. The honest truth is, he would have never won in Cleveland. Throughout his 6-year stint, the organization never put a unit around him that even contemplated winning. And coming in as the chosen one, the most hyped prospect ever, the second coming of greatness, a career of an organization that didn't want to win, wasn't going to work for LeBron. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how lackluster those Cavaliers teams were. The expectations were high enough for LeBron as a player. Coming in, he was expected to turn around the Cavaliers and inject hope into the team and fan base. Bear in mind, the Cleveland Cavaliers were far and away one of the worst NBA teams ever. From 1990 to 2022, out of 933 teams, there were only 35 teams who had a record below or matching the Cavaliers' 17 wins, including 4 teams that took place during a shortened season. They were bottom 5 in defense, offense, and last in net rating. So in acquiring LeBron James, the chosen one, the prospects of the team significantly improved. And under the coaching of the late great Paul Silas, they did. Significantly, in fact. From the 35 teams, they had the 7th best improvement to the next season, and were only 1 game removed from the playoffs. The addition of LeBron, in tandem with contributions from Tony Batty, Big Z, and Carlos Boozer, helped the team, but overall, the unit was still ours. While they were only 1 game out of the playoffs, they were practically bottom 10 in both defense, offense, and net rating. This was because the surrounding cast was extremely piss poor, truly lackluster. This team really didn't have any quality role players. The most run lineup consisted of LeBron James, a rookie, Big Z, who was an all-star caliber player, but was only on his 2nd healthy season, Carlos Boozer, a 22-year-old sophomore who did contribute fair enough, then Jeff McInnes, who was traded there mid-season, and Eric Williams, who, for lack of a better term, wasn't good. On top of that, the depth was appalling. The 21 players who played a single game on that team were all extremely inexperienced, and a lot of them simply weren't contributors, because while LeBron came into his career averaging 20 points, excluding him, only 4 players would average a measly 10 points, and not only that, only 12 players of the 21-man roster would average 10 points in the entirety of their career. Their defense was no better. For those who don't know, relative defensive rating is a stat that measures a team's defensive rating against the league average, with 0 being average and the lower the better. For example, the 14th and 15th ranked defense, Utah and New York, both had defensive ratings of 103.3. Subtract that by the league average defensive rating and you get a relative defensive rating of 0.4. The best defense in the league, San Antonio, had a relative defensive rating of 94.1, resulting in a relative defensive rating of -8.8. The Cavaliers had a relative defensive rating of 1.3. They weren't even close to breaking even, but obviously no one expected them to be good in their first season, so going into 2005, a progression was expected to be made. And while they made major changes, you really can't classify it as a progression. In the offseason, their main pickups were Eric Snow, Anderson Varejao, and Drew Gooden, all players who would retire with solid careers under them. Yet in 2005, these pieces weren't capable of making the playoffs. Because in 2005, Drew Gooden was a quality young star, Eric Snow was 3 years from retiring and had a sharp decline from his previous year's 10 and 7 to 4 points and 4 assists on 38% shooting, and Anderson Varejao was a rookie who rightfully didn't start. The team improved statistically as they moved up in offensive ranking and defensive ranking. In fact, they were bordering top 10, but this was also heavily due to LeBron's improvement as a player. And while LeBron was finishing 6th in MVP voting in his 2nd season, the team again wouldn't make the playoffs. While it's impressive they improved by 25 wins in only 2 seasons and were finally above 500, this also came during an expansion year, meaning the likelihood they would get worse or stay the same was almost non-existent. They'd finally make the playoffs in 2006 as a 4 seed, and it was, by all meanings of the phrase, putting the season on his back. In 2006, LeBron had a chance to become the youngest MVP ever and arguably should have won it. This season, LeBron was considered one of the best players in the world, averaging 31, 7 and 7 on above average true shooting. Even defensively, he took a step, finishing top 20 in steals, he played the passing lane well, and even improved on ball. So, to pair with the best player in the world, the organization removed its first coach Paul Silas with Mike Brown and added Larry Hughes, Damon Jones, Donyell Marshall, and Ronald Murray. The quality of roleplay definitely improved, which is why they finished 4th in the East. The improvements to the offensive lineup finally put them in the top 10, and theoretically the roster could have and should have competed, which they did in the first round with some minor deficiencies from certain players, cough cough Big Z. But in the second round, the Pistons beat them down. In the first game, all the starters had negative plus minuses. When LeBron was struggling to put up 20 points doing it on 9 for 18 shooting with 4 assists and 4 turnovers, Larry Hughes was doing worse, dropping 8 points on 13 attempts. Big Z shot 5 for 14 for the second most points on the team, 14 points. But this is one of the best defensive units we've ever seen. The likelihood they'd struggle is almost guaranteed, right? So the bounce back season should be even better. LeBron finally got his feet wet, the coach would understand his players better, and the team had more than one season to meld together. And they did. In only their second playoff run, they made it to the NBA Finals without any major changes to the roster. Yes, they lost some role players, but they also won 50 games, so the value of what they lost inevitably helped them. Even throughout the playoff series, they played well. Kinda. Well, they swept the Wizards in the first round pretty convincingly. Some percentages dropped and the second unit really held them back, but a sweep is a sweep. In the second round, against the barely 500 Nets, Larry Hughes and LeBron consistently performed, while the supporting cast dropped off. Drew Gooden was going 1 for 6, Big Z was struggling to shoot 50%, defensively they were the 4th ranked defense coming in, so it shouldn't shock you that they improved defensively and had a relative playoff defensive rating of -2.9. But as they went through, the main lack of depth was evident. When LeBron was having bad games, nobody was even relatively improving. Like when they went against the same Pistons that beat them down last time. Barring a few tweaks, LeBron slightly slowed down in terms of scoring and everybody suffered. Even the players who were established stars without LeBron, the only games they won were when LeBron was excelling. Which sounds right, but any potentially successful team shouldn't be incompetent without their star. Not only that, they were playing some of the worst defense that series, barring the Spurs who they met in the finals, and well, they got swept. End of story. Now with only 3 years left in his stint in Cleveland, the Cavs' next roster would drop in rankings while LeBron was only improving. They added Ben Wallace, Joe Smith and Delonte West, yet their defensive standings and rating only got worse? How, you ask? This was because Wallace was years removed from his Defensive Player of the Year seasons, let alone him not finding the same success outside of the Pistons system. Joe Smith was aging and had been on 4 teams in 2 years, meaning he wasn't contributing nothing special besides his size, I guess. And Delonte West was somewhere sleeping with mothers. So despite their quote-unquote improvements they made, the defensive rating stayed the same. The offensive rating only improved by 0.5, and adding new guys, especially mid-season, only set them to lose chemistry in their system. For the players that were already on the team, Verajao improved as a rebounder, Boobie Gibson improved as a good 3-point specialist, but the team couldn't properly improve. This was the definition of a lateral move, which is why they got bounced out in the second round. Now in year 5 of LeBron's greatness, you believe they'd understand the needs of their focal point, and the moves they created were indicating that it would work. LeBron won his first MVP, leading his team to the best record in the league. His overall production jumped, matching his career highs in rebounds and assists. Not only that, his efficiency boosted up above league average, even the free throw shooter he's so infamously known for. To pair with him as a second option, they added Mo Williams, a good pick, solid shot creator, solid overall playmaker. They also added Lorenz Wright and Terrence Kinsley because after letting go of 13 out of 23 players, you can't make it too easy for LeBron. They won an astounding 66 games and even the NBA was hyping a Kobe vs LeBron finals. Deep it, the governing body of the league were picking favourites. That's how serious the prospects of the team were. This continued into the playoffs as well. The same Pistons team that was giving LeBron fits were now getting swept and blown out in every game. The Atlanta Hawks series showed that the supporting cast would keep up even if LeBron wasn't contributing 40. Yet somehow, the Orlando Magic with Dwight Howard and Hedo Turkoglu were the team to dethrone them and kill the dream of a LeBron-Kobe finals. But this time, it wasn't the team's fault. During this series, LeBron was contending against Dwight Howard, one of the best shot blockers in the league, so obviously his game at the rim would slow down, and this would force him to take more middies, which it wasn't LeBron's forte. The lack of help from the team being shut down against the Magic hurt their chances dramatically. The Cavs' lack of depth extended into the defense, as they didn't have anyone who could even comprehend dealing with Dwight Howard, and most importantly, Mo Williams, who was supposed to be LeBron's second star, his main piece of help, simply didn't help. Almost every game was close, being decided by singular possessions, but there was nothing more LeBron could have done. He averaged 39, 8 and 8 on 59% true shooting. He increased his turnover, sure, which obviously didn't help, and he couldn't shoot a long ball for shit, but bad plays are taken by players who have no help. The team couldn't make up the difference. With a 33-year-old Ilgauskas and a missing Mo Williams, this 66-win team would probably be LeBron's best chance to win, as the next season, while they added Antoine Jameson at the deadline trades rarely work in creating championships. They added solid role players in the offseason, including Jamario Moon, Sebastian Telfair and Shaquille O'Neal for whatever reason, and again they were a 60-win team. But while they were top 7 in both defensive and offensive rating, the team's production had not improved from the previous season. Not only did their advanced stats drop, their basic stats dropped, and their record dropped, despite being a quote-unquote the better roster. But regardless, LeBron's back-to-back MVPs helped them to get first in the league, and if you're first in the league, you must be good, right? right? So after beating a Chicago team that nobody cares about, they lost 3 straight games against the Celtics to lose in the second round. Fair enough, the Celtics were finals bound, but for the entire team to stink as bad as they did, including LeBron, a team that had the 11th best record in NBA history, barely making it out of the second round, it's atrocious. Antoine Jameson was meant to be LeBron's second star, and he shot horribly, even going 2 for 10 in one game, and since he wasn't hitting his shots and spacing out the offense, it made things harder for LeBron to work and delegate. Bear in mind, this is the second best player on the team. Even further down than him, the team's rating dropped not only below their averages, but below the league's averages. They had a defense akin to the bottom 15 because the spacing and playmaking between Rondo and Garnett was too much to handle in tandem with their versatile scoring. Even with Paul Pierce playing like us, it didn't slow them down because they had Rasheed Wallace giving them solid production off the bench, which is why every game the Celtics won was a blowout. And with 2 60-win teams down the drain, what more can the Cavaliers do? And with multiple playoff runs failed because LeBron didn't have the personnel to assist him, what more can LeBron do? The issue was that LeBron was a top 10 player in his second or third season, and that was a situation that the Cavs couldn't keep up with. LeBron being that good, that fast, put pressure on the organization to create a winning culture around him, instead of slowly developing the situation around him like they do with most young stars. A modern day comparison would be Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic at the start of the season was leading the MVP race, and for the past 5 years people have been saying that Luka could finish his career as the GOAT, simply due to his quality of play. Yet at the time of this recording, he is 1 loss away from being removed from the playoffs. The organization development track for Luka and the potential success of the franchise is significantly sped up, and the GMs simply can't keep up. In this situation, the Kyrie trade would be akin to Jameson. They've picked up a quality piece, but the title chances practically remain the same as they haven't compensated for the needs of the star or the team's faults, which ties into the next reason for failure. Nobody wants to be in Cleveland. Cleveland as a location is continuously slandered and made fun of because nobody wants to be there. Even when LeBron left, he slandered a place he grew up because it's not a desirable place to be, and when no one wants to be there, it becomes harder to build a potentially successful team. That's why in 6 years, the best player they added was Antoine Jameson, a 2-time All-Star in his 16-year career. What LeBron did for these teams was extremely impressive, and it cemented his legacy as one of the greats, especially after his comeback. But if you want to see why LeBron isn't the GOAT, click this video here. If you like the video, like the video. If you don't subscribe if you want, and I'm done. Okay, bye.